Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. I welcome today's guest, Race Imboden. Race is one of the most decorated fencers in U.S. fencing history. Race is a three-time Olympian, 2012, 2016, and 2021, and won bronze at the Rio 2016 Olympics. Race is also a three-time world champion and has numerous world medals that I can't even count. Race is also an 11-time national team member and a 5-time national champion. I could go on and on, but you guys get the point. Race is one of the best in the business. We'll also have Alex Macialas, one of our previous guests on this series and fellow national team member, co-hosting this video with me. Thank you, Race and Alex, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks.
So today we won't actually have a video clip of Race fencing, but Race, instead I want to ask you about your approach to the mental game of fencing and what makes it so interesting for you. I remember reading through your bio and you attributed much of your recent success to the mindset of fencing. So I was curious if you could kind of dive into that and reflect on that for our audience.
Yeah, I think that for me, the mindset has kind of been one of the keys to my game, especially because, you know, everyone has a different path with how they grow up and where they train and the structure of their training. You know, as I got older, I lost a lot of the people that I was able to train with. So in those clutch years, I had not so many training partners that were at my level, which meant that I needed to learn how to like push myself and change my game rather than just test myself and be like, oh, today I'm beating, you know, this guy who's really great. It's not the same when you're fencing someone who's half your age. You have to really, you know, try to figure out what ways you can push yourself and where you can grow. And for me, that place was always to work on mentality. I had a lot of great coaches growing up, Jed Dupree, Dan Kellner, and now Stefano Cerioni, and then in between Sergei Golubitsky. And I kind of had many different styles of fencing. I've always been really interested in, I've always been really interested in learning different games, different sets of techniques, different ways to manipulate, you know, my actual fencing. But when it came down to it, the thing that was always the most important was for me to find a way to push myself mentally and to be able to play the game in a way that you can compete with anyone in the world and train anywhere in the world. So it was kind of a, you know, a reaction to my environment and kind of changed the way that I fenced based on the places and people I was fencing. I mean, and growing up with Alex, I mean, we both, I think you've seen Alex has like a very consistent style. It's has been his own for a long time. And mine has kind of shifted over time. And you know, I'll be interested to hear what Alex has to say because we both have battled each other many times. And certainly mentality has been a big part of that. And I think when you go through your career, and Alex can attest to this, it's like you look back on and you're like, oh, I was in this place, or I was going through this, or changing this in my life, or becoming more of a man, or becoming calmer, or I was intense at that time, or I had a lot of energy. And those things all relate to that mental capacity for me.
Yeah, I think that definitely resonates with me, and something that's really resonates with me is the idea that you can train with anyone, anywhere, no matter what age and no matter what skill level. And, you know, I think the best coaches and the best fencers all have this understanding that you don't always need the best training partners. You just need someone there who's dedicated to train with. And then it's all up to you as to what you can gain out of that. Something I tell a lot of fencers who ask, oh, you know, I'm like the top dog at my club, you know, how do I get better when everyone around me, I'm better than everyone around me? And I'm sitting there like, you know, you can get better in so many different ways, whether that means like putting yourself into a situation where you're forcing yourself to do things that, you know, your opponent's actually good at defending against, or like good at doing themselves. So you put yourself at a disadvantage. Making sure you work on actions that you're clearly not very comfortable with, or not as comfortable with as other things you might be, and just having the right mindset in going to training. You know, if you go into training thinking, oh, I'm better than everyone and I don't have anything to learn from everyone, let me just see how bad I can beat everyone today, you're not going to learn that much. But if you can change your mentality and really have a growth mindset, even when you're fencing against people who are not as strong as you, you're going to grow a lot, and you'll get better, and you'll learn skills that will translate to when you fence against higher level people. And I was able to learn that kind of firsthand when I was young growing up, and I was one of Garrick's training partners for the 2008 Olympics. You know, Garrick, when he was training for 2008, had me, who was 14 at the time, Nabuo Bravo, 14 at the time, like Turner Caldwell, who's still hadn't broken into the scene super hard yet. And, if you're training for the Olympics and you're working with a bunch of 16 and 14-year-olds, that's clearly not the ideal situation as most people would think. But Garrick was making the best out of the situation. My dad made sure that he put us in drills and fencing situations to test Garrick's ability to the best that he could. And, I think that even though it wasn't the best training situation for the Olympic Games, he actually still was able to be reasonably successful with that. And I was able to take that mindset and apply it to myself once Garrick graduated and he went to college, and a lot of the older fencers were going off to college, and I was clearly the highest ranked kid at my club. And then on to when I went to Stanford, and obviously I was the highest ranked fencer at Stanford while I was there. And you have to really work around that. But it's really about having a couple of really dedicated training partners and a really strong mindset as to how to grow.
I agree.
So Race, just kind of building on top of that practice mentality, I wanted to get your perspective on how you balanced training to win versus training to practice new skills.
Yeah, so training to win, I think there's periods for all of that. I'm a pretty intense guy. Like, the way I train is pretty intense. I'm always kind of competing with you, but a lot of the times it will be to set boundaries for myself. I think it's different too when you train. Again, you're weighing it when you fence it through a season. As you get older, you begin to kind of take back and back off of what you did as a kid, because you're constantly just trying to get better as a kid. Like, there's things that you do as a kid that you would never do. You would never go to a competition and fence Y12, Y14, cadet, senior, and be doing well in all of them and be exhausted. But as a kid, you're just trying to get as much experience under your belt. As you get older, I think you're tweaking a lot more. There'll be times when I go to practice in between competitions, and I've done, 4 practices in 2 weeks and medaled at both World Cups in between. And there's been times when I felt like not very good and pushed a lot of practices in there just to kind of get my feeling back, or come back from an injury, or try to get some soreness out, or some, depending on what I'm doing. I think it's very specific, and the best athletes in the world are flexible. And I think that one of the things that you have to be to be a champion is to be flexible, and to be, like our team is one of the top competitors all the time. We're constantly manipulating, like, who did well in the competition, who's tired, what's this, who's not fencing well today, what's going on, how are we mentally, like, did I get into a fight with my girlfriend last night, is this day, all of these things. And you're weighing these things, and you become better and better and better as you get older at kind of just immediately adjusting, immediately being flexible. So I would say winning to practicing to change something. I would say now I'm probably practicing occasionally to test myself, just to make sure I've still got it. I would say, like, in a week, I'm going to do 1 bout a night where I'm like, okay, this is a good opponent. Like, I was training with Alexander Chupanich, and like, I would fence, 5 matches where I'm working on things. And then Alex and I would maybe fence 1 or 2 matches. In 1 match we would try stuff, and 1 match we would fence. And you can feel the difference when someone's really trying to win and versus, trying to work on something. I know that Alex does a lot of matches with no score. We do stuff like that as well. So yeah, I would say that it's probably in a night, I'm testing myself 1 match where I'm saying, okay, I've been working on these things, and like, I'm getting hit sometimes, I'm not getting hit sometimes, but then I go into a match with somebody and I'm like, let's just see if we've got it. And it's a good, measuring stick. Like, oh, today I didn't really have it. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I need to rest tomorrow. Maybe I was getting hit. I was getting pushed down the end of the strip a lot. Maybe I'm not in it today. Do we need to rest? Do we need to train more? And it's kind of your measuring stick. But as Alex knows, and as people know in fencing competitions, your result at practice has nothing to do with your result in competition. It just doesn't line up. Sometimes we're winning all the time. We go into competition feeling great, and you lose the first match. Sometimes you have a terrible week, and you're like, oh my God, I'm stressed. I'm not going to do well at this competition. And you have a great competition. And I think that you take those with a grain of salt, and you learn to be prepared and trust yourself to perform at the competition.
Yeah, I think that's super on the nose. I think the main thing is you want to try and build that consistency at practice, so that, like, obviously, any week can be different. As Ray said, you can go into a week feeling terrible and end up doing well at the competition, and then vice versa. But if you're able to build a consistency in your training, more often than not, you can help yourself get better results over the long course, right? In the short term, it may not have any difference, but over the long term, over the season, over 2-3 seasons, that's when you'll see the incremental gains of having that consistency of, trying new things in practice and then testing yourself occasionally as well. And that's something, especially as you get older, it's a lot different. When you're younger, as Ray said, you're just trying to get better and better and better. And that's like so right. I always would push myself to a very limit, like my physical limit of how many bouts I could fence every day as a kid, up 14 to like 18 years old. But now, not to say 26 is old, but I've gotten to a place where, I'm sure, as Ray said, you have to kind of work on load management a little bit more and be like, work smarter, not harder. Yeah. I think the thing at our level is that when you're younger, you can grow so much, you can get so much better. But once you hit a certain level, especially when you're in the top 16, you're competing for medals at every World Cup. It's really about adjusting for those incremental gains, trying to get like just a little bit better right before at the right time and stuff like that. And Race nailed it right on the head that like, that's a lot of it has to do with mentality and seeing how you feel throughout the course of a week of training. And so not everything is going to be as regimented as you think it would be, but you have to listen to your body.
Totally. And I kind of building off of that. So you do all that prep in your practice. Let's say you're consistent, you're ready to go to tournament, and you get to the tournament and you start feeling those butterflies in your stomach, or you start feeling the nerves. I want to get your input on how do you, like, what makes you nervous? How do you deal with that nervousness? And how do you stay focused on your fencing?
I think it's definitely an experience thing. I've fenced on every stage there is now at fencing. There's not going to be a place that I haven't stepped on before. I've been in tight matches in finals. I've been in tight matches early in the day, world championships, Olympic games. So when you have that experience under your belt, going back to it is always different. I think that, again, it's trust in yourself, it's experience, it's understanding there's always butterflies. There's always butterflies, depending on who you. I mean, like for me, it's related to the fencer a lot. Like it's my comfort level with their style. There's guys that are amazing fencers, but I know I'm gonna have more time to like grip the bout, to feel it, to like get in there. It works better for me. And there's guys that I get on guard with that I'm like, this is gonna be hell from 0 to 15. Like whether I'm winning 15-0 or not, you know what I mean? It's just like, this is going to be hard work and it's going to be difficult for me. And it's going to be kind of like a way, again, for me to say, back to the mental game, like this is going to be about me controlling myself. And that can be against someone great, or someone who's maybe young or has an unusual style. But as far as the butterflies go, there's always the butterflies. There's always big times and big moments. Sometimes you come out of the box really slow. Sometimes you come out of the box hot. Again, it's understanding both. They're going to happen. You're going to come out slow sometimes. You're going to come out hot sometimes, and you can come back from both. And you can be up 14-0 and still lose the match. So it's like being in that zone and coming under and being comfortable in the spaces, I think was a big thing for me at the beginning. Like just getting them in under your belt. You're like, oh, well now I fenced, Peter Yopik at the World Championships, and I understand what that's like, and like to have the crowd and to have all of that thing. And then the next time you fence him, you are a little more comfortable. There's a little bit less. The butterflies are a little different. And then you have the idea of now we're older and we have people we've never seen before. So that's an unusual thing too. And I think Alex will probably say the same thing. Maybe I'm more worried when I'm not nervous. Like if I go into the day and I'm just like, oh well, I'm here and we're gonna fence, and I get on guard, a lot of the times that can just mean that I'm not in it. So if I'm nervous, it means something's on the line. And for guys like me and Alex who are always fencing for medals or always on a team together who's trying to win, there's always that level of nervous energy.
Totally agree. I mean, yeah, that's something I tell people all the time. Like if you're not nervous, that means nothing's on the line, which means you're not pushing yourself to the best of your ability. So I totally resonate with that in every facet. And one thing that's really interesting is that the nerves in the individual tournament and competition can be very different from the team event as well.
Very.
And one question that, you know, I think some of the viewers might appreciate is understanding how you've progressed in the team of, like, as a team member from a team aspect and an individual aspect, and how things have grown over the years, considering our team has gone from, you know, doing nothing to being the best in the world and competing for medals literally every time we step on the strip.
Yeah. I mean, Alex has definitely seen my transition in team. It was more difficult. I had a lot of success early on individually. It was easier for me to like put the pressure on myself to perform individually than I think I understood how to do it with the guys there in team. So it took me a longer time to adjust to that. I think that I feel more pressure in team sometimes than I do in individual, just because I want to do well. And I feel like it changed when I had more of an ego when I was younger. It was because I wanted to do better than the guys on my team. And then as I got older, it was because I didn't want to mess up on the team. Sorry. I didn't want to mess up on the team and like let the guys down, you know, and be the weak link. And so I think there was like also, you know, there was moments for me after the loss in Rio and not being able to partake in that, like that being able to sit back and say like, oh, I need you to trust me. And it became a thing of like, I always had trust for the guys on my team. And so understanding that they had trust for me was a big part of me being able to just perform the way I wanted to perform. And since coming to that term and being like, guys, I want this for us, and everyone coming together and communicating, it changed that pressure for me. And then from there, I've been able to perform really well in team, and I'm maybe more proud of my team fencing than ever. So that's the truth. And that's also maturity, right? Like egos, trying to be the best all the time. It doesn't change. You can't affect someone else's competition. You can't be better than anybody else. You're going to be the best version of yourself. And certainly the pressure of like being with guys who are great, like growing up and like coming on the circuit, like our guys took off, like we all shot up really quickly. And it was like, damn, like everybody's so good. And you think you're like, you know, it was amazing push. And now we're at this level now where it's such a different energy now because there's new guys on the team and you feel that energy from them. And we're like, okay, like you got a medal, like it's normal. You know what I mean? And like, and it's been funny to see Nick. I think Nick Itkin has been a really funny energy to see on the team, to see someone who wants it, hasn't proved it yet. And you see him kind of fighting with that dynamic, fighting with the dynamic in team, seeing that like pressure after the match where it's like he won and it's like, whew, like he didn't mess up, you know? And nowadays when you see Alex and I think walk off the strip, there's like a quick conversation. It's almost always the same, because now a lot of times I'll set up for Alex, and no matter what the situation is, it's like at the end of the match, Alex will come off, I'll come on. I'll either be saying like, don't worry about it, we'll come back, or like, hell yeah, like we're rocking this, like let's keep like the energy up. And learning that way to like communicate with each other, handle the pressure, and then build a mentality together. That's something that's very special about team fencing, because you're out there alone. But there is definitely a team dynamic, definitely like a leadership, a group dynamic, an energy that is an intangible. And when you hit that's the intangible that you see in sport, where it's like someone who can, like Peter Yopik's a great example, he can never shows emotion, but he's always in the game, can come back 35 points and he can be 160 years old. He's always that guy, you know, and you know, and that's what our team has done. And we've come from nothing, and we've built that together through maturity, experience, and getting to know each other's mental tendencies.
Yeah, I think you're so right with the team mentality. That's super correct. I mean, we've come together, each from at the beginning being, you know, doing whatever and not doing anything in team, and then getting to a point where we're being semi-successful. But it was a lot of us being like individually, like, I want to do the best. I want to do the best. I want to do the best. It's that ego. Like you want to outperform the next person. And now we've gone to a point where we're like, everyone just do fine. Someone's going to pop off, you know, like, just trusting each other. And you're so right. Like when you set up for me, if you didn't do as well as you want, I'm up there being like, hey, doesn't matter. You put me in a position, I can still go out there and do my best, and we can make this work. And if it's something I come off and I'm not feeling good, it's the vice versa. Or you come off of like a big run, and I'm like just there for the energy, like let's go race. Like, you know, next match, I trust in you. You're gonna take that momentum to the house. And I think you see it in the box nowadays with us too. If you watch the side of the match, you know, we're so much louder and so much more energetic. But we've also understood that sometimes people need more space and more like room to think. So at times it's like we need to be quiet so the coaches can get through too. And we've really learned how to operate the best as a team, especially in those tense situations when it's really close too.
Yeah, I think
totally.
so.
Yeah, totally. Those are some excellent insights. Wow. So another aspect of competition is the warm-up phase, right? So there's like the physical warm-up, right? You warm up your muscles, you stretch out. I want to get your input, Race, on the mental warm-up strategies that you use, like because I know like sometimes you might see your competitors around the room, you might get a little nervous. I just wanted to get your input on how you kept yourself focused on yourself and how you're able to stay locked in on yourself, basically.
Yeah, I think that especially in warm up, maybe more than anywhere else in the competition for me, that's the place where like my mental and my physical is almost in line with each other. So I'm very much a routine guy. I do the same warm up every time, no matter where it is. And that's kind of like where I got that intensity part from, you know, creature of habit. So it just became my space. It's like what I do every time, pop the headphones in. I've always been a music guy my whole life. Being able to get in that zone, or just, you know, whatever it is, like get the cobwebs off before practice, take care of my body and allow myself to be ready to then start my warm up, which is actually the fencing, right? So that mental routine is like always the same. If I'm in Japan, I'm at the Olympic Games, I'm warming up with Alex at his club, he's here with me, doesn't matter. Like it's always the same, inside, outside, wherever it is. So it's been nice to always have that to fall back on. And I think that's why I say they're the most in line there, because it's probably the one place where I'm the least flexible, where I'm just like, I have this routine, I'll add some things to it if I have an injury or something like that. But I think that stability is a nice place for me to at least find myself before the competition, to get rid of those nerves and stop focusing on everything around me. Like we chit chat, we like to keep the energy kind of chill. But once the headphones go on, it's like, it's a different game, you know?
Yeah, I know firsthand, once Race puts those headphones on, he's locked in, and there's, unless you really shove him or something, he's not paying attention to you at all.
Definitely not.
Totally, yeah. And so that's totally in line with me and what I've seen around. So like I see people wearing music all the time. I see like people just keeping themselves composed. It's just great to hear that from the Olympic level athletes. So let's say once you get into the tournament, right, you're fencing, maybe get to DE rounds, or you're in the final bout of a team bout. And let's say you get to that clutch situation. There's the 14-14, there's a 44-44, there's any one such situation. How do you deal with that gut wrenching adrenaline? And what is your mindset in order to emerge victorious?
I actually, this might be a weird thing to say, but I actually feel like in 14-14 scenarios, you've had so much bout. It's the only time where you've had so much bout. You've gone through a lot of scenarios. You really know what your opponent's after. You know too, and obviously you guys are neck and neck. Unless it's a scenario where you've lost a big lead or something like that, or there's been a big swing. Usually you come kind of incrementally up to it, and it means that it's a good match. And so when you get to that 14-14, it's like it's you're locked in already. Like you're just getting after it and you're just in it. Like how many times like I've been outside watching a 14-14 match and been like, "Ooh, it's off target. It's doing this." Like, "Oh my God." And then I'm in it and I hit off target and I'm just back on guard because you're just locked in. So I think that at 14-14, you'll notice a lot of the times the advice from coaches is really simplistic. It's really just about being like, be ready. Don't make a simple mistake. Like you see guys that are younger, like rush off the line and get owned, or like do something kind of based on emotion. And the guys who are the best are like playing the same game they played the whole time, all the way up to that last point. And with good guys, it's going to be close matches. Like if Alex and I fence, it's not good. Like very rarely is it a blowout. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's going to be a close match. It's going to be a close match with any of these top guys. When you see a blowout, it's actually not as exciting, and you want to see good fencing. So every opponent is great. When you fence a person in the World Cup, no matter who they are, they're strong. There's a possibility of a 14-14 touch match, and you just kind of welcome it. You're in it, you know? I would say that's how I feel the most of the time when I'm at a 14-14 match. It's a different thing when I have to regather myself, and we've all been in situations like that where, oh, you're winning by a lot, and suddenly you're not, and you get to a 14-14 situation, and suddenly it's, oh, I need to step back. I need to take a second, tie my shoe, fix my hair, whatever my moment is to break the matchup to get back to that zone. It's a little bit different. But certainly your focus should be at the highest level maintained through. Because I would assume you're fencing someone who's very good. And if you're fencing someone who's very good, if you're not maintaining that focus, you're probably going to be losing by a lot anyways, which means that you're probably pretty locked in and getting the 14-14 on that thing. And I just say a lot of the times when I've won 14-14 matches, it's been on fencing from, like, it sounds like a strange thing, but fencing from the heart, like just getting out there and keep competing, staying down. We know how to fence. You're not going to make those mistakes. And if you do, you learn from them. And usually a 14-14 mistake you don't make more than once, honestly, because they sit for you. They sit with you for the longest time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think one thing that Race touched on that I feel similarly is that when you get to that 14-14, a lot of times it is that like incremental battle where it's back and forth for the whole match. And at 14-14, you're fencing, like, as he said, when you're successful, a lot of times fencing your own style, your own way, you're fencing from the heart, but you're also able to make the last change, because at the end of the day, the reason why it's so close is that people are making changes back and forth in the match. Like, I score 2 touches, he scores his 2 touches because he changed, and then I have to change. And when you get to 14-14, you're fencing from the heart, and you realize what that last change is going to be, whether it's subconsciously or you're like, hey, he did this last time, I think I can get around it. But a lot of times, like, I think with both me and Race, it's really getting into that moment, trying to fence our best, and then reacting and be like, okay, like, let me make the last change. I don't care what it is. Like, I mean, let me see what it is, and then I'll go out for it, unless you have like a specific plan.
The person who commits to their game at the end, usually you see it. Like the guys who know themselves the best, the guys who have been around the best, like how many times I've beaten guys 15-14 on like pre-planned action, like almost like just like ready fence, like I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to commit. I'm coming forward. I'm going to push you down the end. I'm going to touch you. And like I beat guys, amazing guys like that. You know what I mean? Something simple like that. And just knowing that, oh, the last 3 times I got hit, he pushed me back. I'm coming forward on this. You don't have a locked in vision because you're flexible. You can react. You make counterattack. He might try to make you fall short. You might be parrying, and you read those things as they come. But you know the position, it's like, it's a mental chess. You know the position of the board, what's happened, where all the pieces are at. And you're like, I'm going here. I'm going to move this over here. And we're going to watch for his reaction and try to take him out afterwards. I think that's a lot of it.
Totally, yeah. Like being strong and confident, like at that brink where you guys are incrementally pushing each other, like just being strong and committing to it. I think that's a trend I've seen as well in my fencing. And it's great to hear from you guys. So the next question I have for you is the reverse situation. And I think you started to talk about that, which is you have a lead and they start coming back. So you're up 14-12, 14-11, maybe 12-8, or even 10-3. What is your mindset to combat that momentum from them? And how do you keep yourself in the game?
Sometimes it can be about taking yourself out of the game, taking a second, changing a foil, just taking a moment to break the momentum can be good in that situation. And that's just kind of like an old vet move. People did it to me when I was a kid, and I hated it because I would like run on touches and they'd be like, oh, I'm changing my foil or my body cord, and it would break up the match. It would really change the momentum because you're on a roll. And then secondly, sometimes I don't know, for me, sometimes it's a rhythm thing. Like, it's like you're in a match, you're fencing with somebody and they're like almost they're not out moving you, but like it's a level switch. So like you'll feel it when you're fencing. It's like someone's in 5th gear and you're in 4th, and you're just not making them fall short. You're just not getting to them. And sometimes it can be like, there's back-to-back. There used to be more back-to-back World Cups and stuff, and you can feel like you gotta get that gear up, and it's a struggle sometimes. And changing that gear, giving that little bit of extra emphasis, using your voice a little bit. Garrick is an interesting case because Garrick is a really quiet guy. So when you see Garrick start yelling, a lot of the times for him, it's him trying to get that gear to change. And when Garrick changes his gear, it's a big gear because it's fast. So it's like when Garrick is yelling, I'm always like, I gotta get going. Like this is gonna be an intense match. And so that's kind of what you'll see that with a lot of guys. They'll like, hit their leg or do something, or Facconi talks to himself or talks to the machine, and it's to get that energy to force off someone running a bunch of touches on you. And I think that can be a big part of it. If you're not able to like really control or stop the match or stop the bleeding, and then sometimes, a lot of times at your level or with kids, you can have a very big gap of experience or technique, and that can be the change where someone has another gear than you. I remember going and fencing a Chinese guy, Zhu, for the first time, and he just had, and like even Lei, the first time I fenced Lei, had another gear than me. Like he could move and change the match in a way that I wasn't able to keep up with him. And, even though the match might have been slightly close, when it was like 10-10, he hit that switch and the match was over. So that was a big change for me, at least.
Yeah, and then of course the reverse situation of that is where you're making the comeback. So you're down 13-14, you're down 12-14, maybe 10, like you're down 3-10 or down any number. What is your mindset to keep yourself in the game and eventually make a comeback to win?
I think you just keep pushing and you keep trying to make changes that work. And when you keep searching and you find the thing that works, you get in after it, and you try to keep scoring off of it until either the person makes another change, and hopefully they don't, or, like I think 13-12, 13-10, you're completing the match. Like, yeah, they're 2 points in the end, but a 5-touch match can go either way. It can go really quick. So I at 12-10 or 9-12, like that kind of thing, it's like you're absolutely in the match. Like there's a way to win that match. Learning that is a big part of it as well. Just understanding that, like, if you are playing this game and finding these puzzle pieces and you find the right one that fits, it will work. And then you trust yourself and you do it over and over again. And that's where the technique kicks in, where like your experience and being able to perform the actions that you put your mind to, that's where that kicks in. Because then it's like, oh, you don't have the room for error at the end of the match, but right now, every time I'm like meeting him in the middle of the strip, or every time I'm doing like, beat 4, hold the blade coming forward, I can find the target or something, like those little things and those little tricks come along with that.
Okay, and then I guess another unexpected, or maybe not unexpected, but another facet of competition is the kind of distraction. So there may be another fencer who's yelling or who's very emotional, or maybe there's a ref who made a bad call, or just some other distraction. Yeah.
Have you ever seen Race and Ashramani fence?
Yeah.
But yeah, when there's like that kind of distraction or external factor, how do you stay focused on your game, and how do you mitigate that distraction?
I mean, mine is pretty simple. Like, I'm pretty combative. So like my thing is to give it back to them. I've tried to be more calm with it, and it's just not my personality. Like if someone's postponing the bout in a way that I don't like, I let them know. And I'm like, hurry the hell up. Like, get this guy on guard. Like, do this thing. Stop playing this game. Like, you're losing for a reason. Or like, I'm in control of this match, It's just things like that. And you know who those people are. You know who those people who try to sway the thing. And my thing, that the reaction that works best for me is to match their energy, and to come and meet them and be energetic with them, to get in their face, to be with them. And that's me. Other people need to stay calm and be more focused. And for me, when I usually am intense, I can lay a lot on the line, and I usually fence very well, especially in team. I mean, you saw it with Chermisnov, my reaction to that match, being angry at the referee, being angry at myself, being angry, rather than letting him just kind of start to do his thing, I match that energy. It feeds the team. It feeds me. It feeds the whole situation. We were able to build that big team match.
Yeah. And, this is an example of, I think, a lot of high level fencers not tackling the same thing the same way. As Ray said, some people need to be more calm. And for me, that's usually what it is. It's like, when they're trying to make all these distractions, my feeling is I'm always on the opposite end. I'm like, just don't let him distract me. Let him do what he wants. But if I'm in control, I'm still in control. The thing he's trying to do right now is trying to get to bother me. So as long as I don't let myself be affected, then I think I have a good shot at still being successful after it. And also, but knowing as well, you can't let them get away with everything too. So there's a fine line between, you know, letting them do whatever they want, and then you just focusing on yourself, and you kind of getting walked over. And that's one thing I had to learn, is like where that line is. And when people are really, you know, pushing the boundaries, that's when I'll be like, hey, you know, that's not okay. Just get back on guard, or tell the referee, like, look, you know what he's doing, I know what he's doing, and then let the referee deal with it, right? Like, but you have to find that. For me, it was finding that balance between not letting him get in my head, but also not letting them do whatever they want, because at a certain point they feel like they're in control when they do that.
Alex is the king of the finger wag. Alex is
Like,
anytime ref makes the call, he's like, no. Like, you ask for something that's not yours, he's like, no, it's not yours. He's like always like giving you a finger wag when that's his thing. And then if you really, it's hard to get under Alex's skin. I've only probably done it like 2 or 3 times, and I had to really, really get after him. But like the concept there is like, that's Alex's personality. And like someone like Aspermani is a great example, because Aspermani fencing flat is not as dangerous. Like, it's just not as dangerous. Whereas like him emotional and fencing with his personality, he's dangerous today. So it's an interesting concept. And it's the same thing. And you can tell that like some people who are quiet can still be intense, or like, you know, Alex will definitely, you can feel the intensity in his movements and stuff when you're fencing him. It may be on the outside, he's a little bit calmer, or he doesn't yell as loud as some people, but you can feel it when like there's a little bit more power in the lunge, or like that parry is like a little bit stronger and faster, and you feel that energy. And it's again about controlling that fire and how you feed it, how you let it out or find it. You know, I've been in the call room with Garotto where he's like hitting himself, and I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? And he's like, I have to find the fire. I have to find the fire, you know? And that's his way of doing it. He has to be like that. He'll sit up in the stands and be alone. That's his way.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. The personality, like whatever, there are like varying styles, but whatever fits the personality, and recognizing that and embracing that, I think that's the key factor. So that's great to hear. And so I was curious, like in terms of developing this kind of mindset, like was there a figure or mentor in your fencing career? Like was there a coach, or was there like an event that made you more aware of the mental game, or how did you go about developing this kind of mindset?
I mean, all my coaches, every fencing coach you work with deals with the mental game. If they're a good coach and you're a high level athlete, the main thing is dealing with you mentally. You know, they're the person that you need to like dictate when you're in the right control space, what you're doing. That's a lot of that space. That is what being a coach is for me. I think the way I learned about it was through experience. Like as a kid, being really emotional, crying after competitions, crying during matches, throwing my mask down, being upset, like just being so invested and freaking out, and it's a childish thing to do, and that's maturity. And my coaches used to tell that to me, like, oh, you've got to mature, you're not ready yet, like, you know. And you hear that and you're like, I'm ready, like, I can beat these guys, and you're like, no, you're not, you know. And like and that was a big part of it. And now you finish a match and you're upset, but you move along, you have another day, you have another thing. It's not, you learn to leave it on the strip. You know, the same way that Alex and I can have a match where we're super intense with each other in practice, and 5 seconds be later laughing about something on Instagram. Like, it's just how you learn to leave it on the strip. And certainly experience. For me, it was a big experience thing. Like starting to realize that it wasn't helping me. Like sometimes that, like, oh, if I'm too emotional or I let that run the whole match, then it didn't help me. If I got so angry at you, it's not helping me. If I'm getting and I say anger, but it's like if I'm getting riled up or like fiery for the match to fence harder, to like move back faster, and it's converting, it's good. If it's just at you, I'm angry at you, you were winning. You know, like I'm not controlling that. So that was the same thing. Like, you know, we've all had times where referees are pissing us off or not doing the thing we think is correct. And Alex talked about that fine line, and that's what you're finding. You're playing with that line. Like, did I go too much? Did I have to reel it in? Did I have to push a little more? Should I have mentioned it? You know, how do you talk to referees? How do you control the situation? And you see fencers do it all the time. Like, you see how fencers talk to their coaches after competitions. Like, when it's frustrating, the coach takes a lot of that heat. Like, Alex will talk with his dad and have a heated conversation. We'll have dinner later. You know, it's just like, you need to express yourself and to learn to cope and control with those emotions. in order to have longevity and consistency.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, those are some amazing mental insights. Do you have any final pieces of actionable advice that you could, like if there was one thing that you could tell our audience to pay attention for, do you have any piece of advice that you would highlight?
I would say trust yourself and do things the way that comes naturally to you. Take advice, but nothing will teach you the way to be a champion more than owning your own style, owning your own thing. There's only going to be one of Alex. There's only going to be one of me. You know, you can come out and have your own styles, your own thing, or learn or take bits of it. But when it comes down to it, when you're in those 14-14 matches, it's you out there. So trusting yourself, building your own fencing, seeing the stuff you love, fencing the way that makes you feel whole will take you really far in the game. Doesn't matter if people like it or don't like it, or your footwork is slow. There's too many successful people, and fencing is still a very, honestly, like young. It's not a young sport, but it's young in the way that it's been. We haven't broken the boundaries yet. You're going to see a lot of development in the sport, in the way people play it, in the way when people start changing their guard positions and how we hold. We have 3 grips. Like, there's going to be massive changes in this sport, and it's going to be someone young who does that. So I think trusting yourself and being able to go out and own it your way will take you really far.
Wow,
Yeah,
those are some really, oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, like, I think we've all kind of shown that we all can break boundaries in certain aspects, right? No one fenced like I did until I fenced, and no one fenced like Race until Race fenced. And obviously there are people who want to emulate that, but at the end of the day, the reason why we were successful is because we were breaking our own boundaries and trying to fence our own style. I took, you know, cues from Garrick. I took cues from, you know, the fencers that came before me. But at the end of the day, you can only take cues from them. You can't be them. You know, you can only be yourself.
Totally, yeah. Those are some really great mental insights into the mindset of fencing. As you can see, Race's mindset allowed him to have consistent, sustained success. Mindset and mental prep are some of the most overlooked tools of fencing that any fencer can use to improve their game, including you. I hope that by watching this video, you can understand what the best in the business are doing themselves. I am your host, Jacob Lei, and thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys.